Many people want a better life. They want to breathe more easily at the end of the month, look at their bank account without fear, sleep without the weight of debt, and feel that the effort of every day is leading somewhere. Deep down, almost everyone wants that. The problem is that wanting a better life and building a better life are very different things. Because between the dream and the realization, there is a path that is not always comfortable. That is exactly where few people pay attention. Many people think that getting rich depends only on luck, on knowing the right person, on finding a rare opportunity, or on hitting a great idea at the perfect moment. But in practice, financial transformation usually begins in a much less glamorous way. It begins when a person understands that they cannot keep living the same way and expect a different result. The truth is simple. Even if it is uncomfortable, those who want to grow financially need to learn to sacrifice certain things. And we are not only talking about great sacrifices, the kind everyone sees and admires. Many times they are small daily renunciations, almost invisible, but that make all the difference over time. It is giving up an immediate pleasure to protect a bigger goal. It is saying no to what brings relief now, but delay later. It is choosing the future, even when the present tries to distract, because money does not usually escape from people's lives all at once. It leaves gradually. It goes in thoughtless decisions, in habits repeated without attention, in distractions that steal time, focus, and energy. And when the person realizes it, they have already worked a lot, already tired themselves out quite a bit, but are still in the same place. Not because they lack worth, not because they lack intelligence, but perhaps because they still lack the courage to cut what is holding back their progress. Building wealth requires more than willpower. It requires awareness. It requires discipline. It requires the maturity to understand that not everything that brings pleasure helps, and not everything that is uncomfortable is harmful. Sometimes, precisely what seems difficult at the beginning is what opens the path to a more stable, stronger, and freer life ahead. And this is the great turning point. Getting rich is not just about adding things to life. Many times, it is about removing excess, removing bad habits, removing distractions, removing behaviors that seem small but that together drain anyone's potential. Before building, you need to clear the ground. Before multiplying, you need to stop wasting. In the end, whoever truly changes their life is almost never just the one who dreams more. It is the one who decides better. It is the one who accepts trading momentary comfort for true progress. It is the one who understands that certain sacrifices are not losses. They are silent investments in a life that further along can become much greater than it seemed possible. There is also a point that many people avoid facing. Several of the things that hold back financial life do not seem dangerous at first. On the contrary, many come disguised as reward, as rest, as fun, as I deserve this. And that is exactly why they have so much power. Because they do not arrive knocking at the door like enemies. They enter slowly, become part of the routine, and when the person realizes it, they are already taking up too much space in their life. That is how many unproductive habits grow. A small expense here, a distraction there, an impulsive choice today, another tomorrow. In isolation, nothing seems serious. Nothing seems enough to ruin someone's future. But the problem is almost never in a single act. The problem lies in repetition. It lies in accumulation. It lies in the silent sum of behaviors that steal money, focus, discipline, and direction. That is why, when talking about cutting certain things, it is not just about abandoning obvious luxuries. Many times, the real obstacle lies in immediate pleasures that seem innocent but weaken the ability to build something greater. The person says they want to grow, but feeds habits that keep them trapped in the now. They want to prosper, but cannot say no to what delivers quick satisfaction. They want freedom in the future, but keep surrendering to what only numbs the present. And here comes an important truth. The rush to feel good today can destroy the chance to live better tomorrow. This happens because immediate pleasure almost always carries a hidden price. Sometimes it is money, sometimes it is time, sometimes it is mental energy, sometimes it is the loss of consistency, and without consistency, even the best plans crumble. Those who begin to transform their own financial life understand that not every desire deserves to be obeyed. Not every wish needs to become action. Not every distraction deserves space. There are moments when growing requires firmness to break cycles that seem normal. And that kind of decision does not attract attention, does not earn applause, but it changes destinies. Deep down, what separates those who keep going in circles from those who begin to move forward is precisely this ability to recognize what needs to be left behind. Because before earning more, many people need to stop losing so much. Before multiplying money, they need to regain control. Before reaching abundance, they need to overcome everything that has, little by little, been draining their strength without them noticing. Another point that strengthens this message is the idea of time. Because many people live as if they could postpone everything. They postpone organizing their financial life. They postpone cutting unnecessary expenses. They postpone discipline. They postpone the moment of learning to handle money better. And without realizing it, they turn postponement into a lifestyle. The problem is that time does not pause for those who have not yet decided to change. That is why the notion of acting before a certain milestone gains so much strength within this kind of narrative. When a deadline exists before a person, even a symbolic one, they stop treating their own change as something distant. Suddenly, the future no longer seems so far away. And that affects the mind because it forces the person to think, how much more time am I going to keep repeating the same mistakes? How much of my life will still be spent on distractions, impulses, and weak decisions? Urgency has this role of awakening, of shaking things up, of pulling the person out of that dangerous illusion that there will always be a new chance, a new beginning, a next Monday, a next month, a next year. Of course, it is always possible to start over, but not every delay is cheap. In many cases, each wasted month represents money thrown away, ignored opportunities, more deeply rooted bad habits, and a mind increasingly accustomed to giving in. Think of someone who wants to build a house. If they spend years just looking at the land, talking about the project, imagining how beautiful everything will be in the future, but never begins to clear the area, separate the materials, and lay the foundation, the house will never leave the paper. Financial life works in a similar way. A moment comes when dreaming is no longer enough. You need to start, even if simply, even if small, even if still imperfect. This sense of deadline also helps reveal an important truth. Wealth is not usually built in giant moves, but in decisions made at the right moment. The sooner a person cuts habits that impoverish them, the sooner they create space for habits that strengthen them. The sooner they stop wasting, the sooner they begin to accumulate. The sooner they take control, the less time they spend being controlled by circumstances. Deep down, the message is clear. It is not worth waiting for the ideal scenario to change your life. Those who desire growth need to treat the present as building ground, not as a waiting room. Because a person's future rarely changes on its own. It begins to change the instant they realize that continuing to postpone costs too much. Furthermore, all of this construction points to a type of content that speaks less about magic formulas and more about a transformation of mindset. Because in the end, getting rich is not just about learning to earn money, it is about learning to think differently from the majority. And that begins when a person understands that discipline is worth more than passing excitement, and that giving up what weakens you is just as important as seeking what strengthens you. Many people spend their lives looking for the next secret, the next opportunity, the next trick that promises to change everything quickly. But reality tends to be simpler and at the same time more demanding. Financial progress generally comes from a set of attitudes that seem ordinary, even silent, but that carry enormous power when repeated with consistency. Controlling impulses, protecting your own time, having clarity about priorities, avoiding waste, choosing to grow instead of merely appearing successful. This kind of narrative speaks directly to people who are tired of living on autopilot. People who have already realized that the problem is not always the lack of effort, but the direction of that effort. Because working hard without financial discipline can keep leading to the same place. Earning more without changing habits can simply mean spending more. Wanting to prosper without abandoning unproductive behaviors is like trying to run forward while something pulls you back. That is why the idea of renunciation gains so much importance. Not as punishment, but as strategy. Not as meaningless suffering, but as an intelligent choice. Those who decide to cut excesses, distractions, and immediate pleasures that sabotage their future are not losing freedom. They are building freedom. They are refusing small satisfactions of today to open the way for a stronger life tomorrow. And there is something very powerful in that. When a person changes the way they think, they also change the way they act. And when they change the way they act, they change the results they begin to reap. Gradually, what once seemed impossible begins to seem achievable. Money stops being just something that comes and goes without control. Time stops being consumed by empty things. Energy begins to be directed with more intelligence, and life finally begins to gain structure. Deep down, this kind of message tries to show that wealth is not born only from what someone conquers, but also from what they decide to abandon. Because growing financially is not just about adding income. Many times, it is about removing what weakens the mind, delays decisions, and prevents consistency. And when a person finally understands this, they stop looking for shortcuts and begin to build, step by step, a solid foundation that can truly sustain a new life. You may want to change your life, earn more, get out of the squeeze, and finally build financial peace. But you need to understand one thing. That will not happen just because you want it very much. It will also not happen just because you work hard, wake up early, or live exhausted. Many people do all of that and remain in the same place. And do you know why? Because they want a different future, but keep feeding habits that destroy that future every single day. If you truly want to get rich, you will need the courage to give up certain things. You will need to sacrifice distractions, immediate pleasures, customs that seem small but steal your focus, your time, and your money. Because the truth is simple. No one builds a strong life while carrying everything that weakens the mind and empties the pocket. A moment comes when you need to decide. Either you keep living for the relief of now, or you begin building the freedom of tomorrow. If you look honestly at your life, you will realize that many things that seem harmless are holding back your growth without you noticing. And that is one of the biggest problems in financial life. What destroys your future almost never arrives looking like a threat. Most of the time, it comes disguised as reward, as rest, as quick pleasure, as I deserve this, as just this once, as I'll deal with it later. And that is how, little by little, many people drift further from the life they say they want to build. You do not lose your financial peace all at once. You lose it gradually. You lose it when you leave for tomorrow a decision you should have made today. You lose it when you get used to living on impulse. You lose it when you trade planning for emotion. You lose it when you spend to relieve stress, when you distract yourself to avoid facing reality, when you seek immediate pleasure every time life demands discipline. All of this seems small in the moment, but over time it forms a pattern. And pattern is what builds or destroys any destiny. Perhaps you have already realized this at some point. Perhaps you have already promised yourself that you would start getting better organized, that you would stop wasting money, that you would use your time better, that you would focus more on what truly matters. But the days went by, the routine tightened, fatigue took over, and what was meant to be change became just another forgotten intention. This is the cycle that traps so many people. They even know what they need to do, but keep giving in to what weakens them. And here is a truth that many people need to hear plainly. As long as you do not learn to say no to certain things, your financial life will keep saying no to you. No to peace, no to freedom, no to growth, no to the calm you so much desire. Because prosperity is not born only from what you earn. It also depends greatly on what you stop losing. You need to understand that getting rich is not just about adding things to your life. Many times, it is about removing excess, removing bad habits, removing distractions that steal your clarity, removing behaviors that drain your energy, removing the need to appear well while your inner structure is weak. Before building wealth, you need to clear the ground of your own life, because no one raises a strong house on top of a foundation full of cracks. And the hard part is that these cracks do not always appear in obvious ways. Sometimes they are in that repeated expense you have already normalized. They are in the time thrown away on things that add nothing. They are in the lack of control over your own impulses. They are in the habit of seeking comfort in everything that offers quick relief but charges a high price afterward. They are in the habit of living the present as if the future will organize itself, but it will not. No one's future organizes itself without decision. That is why, if you truly want to move forward, you will have to accept one thing. Not everything that gives you pleasure is doing you good. Not everything that feels light is helping you. Not everything that has become routine deserves to remain in your life. There are habits that seem small but are pulling your entire life downward. And as long as you insist on protecting what sabotages you, you will keep postponing the transformation you say you so badly want. Growing financially requires maturity. It requires the ability to look at yourself and acknowledge, this is holding me back. And more than acknowledging, it requires the courage to cut. Because many people identify the problem but do not move. They know what is wrong, but keep repeating it. They understand what needs to change, but prefer to maintain the comfort of the old routine. But too much comfort almost always comes at a high cost. And many times, the price is an entire life without real progress. You do not need perfection to start. You do not need to have everything sorted out. You do not need to have a lot of money. You do not need to wait for the ideal moment. But you do need to stop treating your change as something secondary. You need to stop thinking that you will reap a different life while maintaining the same mindset, the same impulses, and the same mistakes, because that is not how it works. A new result requires a new posture. The life you want will demand renunciation from you. It will demand firmness. It will demand choices that perhaps no one will see, but that will define everything further down the road. And that is where many people give up, because they prefer the quick reward to the silent process. They prefer the pleasure of now to the freedom of later. They prefer to ease today, even if that complicates the entire month, the entire year, sometimes the entire life. But those who truly grow do it differently. Those who truly change their life understand that certain sacrifices are not punishment. They are a bridge. They are an investment. They are proof that the person has finally decided to take themselves seriously. And when you begin to take yourself seriously, your time begins to have more value, your money begins to have direction, your habits begin to have purpose, and your life stops being guided by impulses and begins to be guided by vision. Deep down, the question is simple. How long are you going to keep feeding what holds you back and hoping to live what sets you free? Because a moment comes when it is not enough to just want more from life. You need to show, through your choices, that you truly deserve to live something greater. Now I want to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it honestly. What in your routine today is taking you further from the life you say you want to live? What do you maintain out of habit, out of custom, out of impulse, but deep down already know is draining your time, your money, and your energy? Because many times the first step toward getting rich is not discovering something new. It is having the courage to see what has been wrong for a very long time. Is your problem really a lack of opportunity? Or are you still giving too much to distractions that lead you nowhere? Is the money missing at the end of the month just a result of what you earn, or also of the way you choose to live? Is the future you dream of distant because of the world, or because certain decisions within your own routine keep pushing you backward? These questions are uncomfortable, I know, but they are uncomfortable because they touch the root. And those who want to change their life need to stop running from the right questions, because as long as you do not face the truth, you keep fighting only the symptoms. You try to earn more without learning to manage better. You try to grow without cutting excess. You try to move forward without abandoning burdens that should have been left behind long ago. And so life passes with a lot of effort, a lot of exhaustion, and very little real result. Perhaps you are watching all of this and thinking, but I work so hard, I try so hard, I deserve to be better off. And perhaps you did deserve it. But effort without direction can become mere wear. Sacrifice without awareness can become mere fatigue. Working hard without the discipline to protect what comes in can simply mean continuing to run in circles. And no one builds wealth running in circles. Wealth is built when you begin to walk in a straight line, with clarity, with firmness, with control. So it is worth asking yourself honestly, what do you need to sacrifice now so as not to sacrifice your peace in the future? Which habits need to leave your life so that stability can finally find space to enter? Which quick pleasures are costing too much? Which distractions are stealing years of your evolution? Which small decisions, repeated every day, are shaping a life that you already know you no longer want? Because the truth is that almost everyone wants to prosper, but not everyone is willing to do what prosperity demands. Almost everyone wants to harvest, but few accept clearing the ground, preparing the soil, and waiting for the right time. Almost everyone wants freedom, but many remain in love with the habits that produce imprisonment. And as long as that does not change, the result does not change either. Perhaps today is the moment for you to stop and observe yourself more seriously. Not to blame yourself, not to judge yourself, but to finally take command of your own life. Because no one can cut for you what is holding you back. No one can have discipline in your place. No one can protect your future if you keep handing it over little by little to things that only offer immediate relief. And here is one more question, perhaps the most important of all. If you keep living exactly as you live today, where will your financial life be a year from now? Better, or in the same place? Stronger, or more exhausted? Freer, or still trapped in the same cycles? Think about that calmly, because sometimes change begins at the exact moment when a person stops making excuses and decides to answer themselves with truth. So in the end, the great change does not happen when you merely get excited about a beautiful idea. It happens when you decide to live differently, when you stop negotiating with what is holding you back, when you understand that wealth is not born only from what enters your pocket, but also from what leaves your life. It leaves in the form of waste, of distraction, of impulse, of weak choices that seem small, but together steal years from your construction. If you want a stronger, more stable, and freer financial life, you will need to choose more consciously. You will need to better protect your time, your money, and your energy. You will need the courage to abandon habits that may bring pleasure for a few minutes but charge dearly in the long run, because the future you dream of will not be built by chance. It will be built by the decisions you make when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when only you know how hard you are fighting to change. And perhaps that is what you needed to hear today. You do not need to remain trapped in the same cycle. You do not need to repeat the same mistakes forever. You do not need to accept as normal a life of effort without progress. But to get out of that place, you will have to act. You will have to cut what weakens you. You will have to feed what strengthens you. You will have to stop living just to survive the month and begin building something that can truly transform your story. Remember one thing: every conscious sacrifice you make today can turn into peace tomorrow. Every distraction you overcome today can become progress tomorrow. Every firm choice you make now can be the beginning of a life that for a long time seemed too distant. And that is how many people change their lives. Not with magic, not with luck, but with decision, discipline, and the courage to do what needs to be done. If this message spoke to you, like this video and subscribe to the channel, because here you will find more content to strengthen your mindset, take better care of your money, and build a much more intelligent financial life.